Valinor is the realm of the Valar, which was located in central Aman where the Valar moved after the end of the Spring of Arda. There, the lamps and later Almaren was destroyed by Melkor. The term means land of the gods. Off the eastern shore was Tol Eresseä, the lonely owl. The Valar established their domain there behind the walls of Pelóri with their houses, gardens, and towers. It became more beautiful than Middle-earth, even during the Spring of Arda. And it was blessed, for the deathless dwelt there, and there naught faded nor withered, neither was there any stain upon flower or leaf in that land, nor any corruption or sickness in anything that lived, for the very stones and waters were hallowed. After the full development of Valinor, they built the city, Valmar of many bells, in the midst of the plain beyond the mountains, along with Azelohar and Corolare, which was a green mound hallowed by Yavanna. There she sat on the green grass singing a song of power, while the Valar gathered together to hear her song. Nienna watered the mold with tears while sitting and thinking in silence. They all sat silent in their thrones of council in the Ring of Doom, Mahanaxar, near the golden gates of the city, and watched Yavanna sing before them. Under the song of Yavanna there awoke the two trees of Valinor, one with dark green leaves and shining silver beneath, and the other with a young green and gold edges. Flowers swung among her branches, and clusters of yellow flame formed to glowing horns. Telperion and Lorelin, they were called, though they had other names as well. Telperion bloomed first, and the Valar named it the opening hour, for it was the oldest. Thus it would cease its time of flowering on the 6th hour of the first day. Lorelin would cease its blossoming in the 12th hour. This would occur until the darkening of Valinor. Thus, each day in Aman would have 12 hours, with each hour lasting a mortal month. This ended with the second mingling of the lights, where Lorelin would wane, but Telperion would wax. But the light that was spilled from the trees endured long ere it was taken up into the airs or sank down into the earth, and the dews of Telperion and the rain that fell from Lorelin Varda hoarded in great vats like shining lakes that were to all the land of the Valar as wells of water and of light. Thus began the days of the bliss of Valinor, and thus began also the count of time. The Valar seldom came to Middle-earth, but treated the Pelóri with care and love. The mansions of Aule were in the midst of the realm where he had labored. He was the friend of the Noldor, who were the most skilled of the Elves. Manwë was the highest and holiest of the Valar, and he sat upon his throne in Taniquetil upon the borders of Aman. He was not jealous of his power, and his music was a song of words. He was appointed king as the vicegerent of Ilúvatar. He dwelt with Varda, who was also named Elbereth, queen of the Valar and the maker of the stars. Ulmo dwelt alone in the outer ocean, where he would govern the flowing and directions of waters, and the ebbing and courses of rivers and replenishment of springs, as well as the distilling of dews and rain in every land. And he was also known for his music. The Teleri learned much of Ulmo, so his music will be filled with both sadness and enchantment. Yavanna was unwilling to forsake the outer lands, and mourned for the works that were marred by Melkor. Orome would tame beasts and sound the horn, while Roma upon the plains of Arda. Each of them had their own region within Valinor that they altered to their desire. This was also related to what their gifts were. For example, Yavanna in the pastures of Yavanna in the south, Orome in the woods of Orome in the northeast of the pastures, Nienna in the lonely Vala of sorrow and endurance, Mondos in halls of Mondos, Irmo in the gardens of Lorien, Este in the middle Isle in the lake of Lorelin in Lorien, Aule at the mansions of Aule the smith, Manwë and Varda at the mansions of Manwë and Varda, the west of which stood the two trees of Valinor. Melkor started to envy the kingdom of Manwë. He and Ungoliant, who would be the mother of Shelob, started to plot his revenge, though Ungoliant was torn between lust and fear when she found out Melkor's plot for revenge. Do as I bid, and if thou hunger still when all is done, then I will give thee whatsoever thy just may demand, yea, with both hands. They set forth an unlight, which was where things seemed to be no more, and then Ungoliant lay upon the mountain dark, casting down a ladder of woven ropes that she made for Melkor to climb upon. Melkor saw the two trees, and saw how great it was in Valinor, for it was a time of festival. He saw Yavanna setting times for the flowering and ripening of all things, and Manwë would make a high feast dedicated to the praising of Eru. All the people of Valinor were singing, including the Noldor, Vanyar, and the Maiar, singing before Manwë and Varda in their lofty halls. The unlight of Ungoliant would later rise up, so Melkor would smite and wound each tree, and Ungoliant would suck each root and leaf until its death. She still thirsted and drank them dry afterwards. This marked the darkening of Valinor. Since the elves and men are the children of Ilúvatar, none of the Ainur would dare to add anything to their music. The elves do not die unless they are slain or waste in grief, which they can both be subject to. The remaining elves would go to the halls of Bondos in Valinor when they grew weary of their life in Middle-earth, since as immortals they would remain for thousands of years. The men, however, would die and leave the world, and death would be a gift for them from Ilúvatar. However, Melkor brought evil and darkness out of it, and fear instead of hope, which is why later he would convince the Númenorians, which are mortal men, that they can enter Valinor to be granted immortality. The men fell swiftly under Morgoth as they listened to his evil and cunning words. While they feared the darkness they believed, they also worshipped it. Thus, some of them would sail west as they had heard a rumor that in the west there was a light which the shadow could not dim. Eärendil had sailed west just before then and never returned. After Manwë put forth Morgoth and shut him beyond the world for him, never to return, the Undying set sail, following the star of Eärendil. The Eldar was summoned to the west, and a land was made for the Undying to dwell in, which was neither in Middle-earth nor of Valinor. They are later called the Dunedain, who would dwell under the protection of the Valar. The Dunedain learned the High Elven tongue and became mighty in crafts, as well as nourished shipbuilding and shipcraft. However, the lords of Valinor forbade them to sail westward. They had to be able to see Númenor. The Dunedain couldn't understand why they couldn't go so far west. The design of Manwë was that they couldn't go there, though they were farsighted and could see it anyways. They didn't dare break the ban. The Númenorians should not be tempted to seek for the blessed realm, not desire to overpass the limits set to their bliss, becoming enamored of the immortality of the Valar and the Eldar and the lands where all things endure. However, later the Númenorians were convinced that the trip to Valinor would grant them immortality. The Valar seldom went back to Middle-earth over the mountains, but stayed in the Blessed Realm. After the destruction of Númenor, Valinor, the Undying Lands, were no longer a physical part of Arda. This meant that for a time after that, only the elves were allowed to sail there by the straight road.